Hoy tenemos 4 peleas con peleadores intelectuales de peso completo. Poligamia contra monogamia. Aunque poligamia y monogamia quiere decir uno o más matrimonios, nos referimos sobre todo, como ustedes imaginarán, a promiscuidad versus no promiscuidad. ¿Cuál es la natura humana? En esta gran pelea tendremos a 7 evolucionistas, a 7 biólogos y a un rabino. 4 contra 4. Escucharemos distintos puntos de vista. Habrán 3 rounds. Ustedes vivirán cada uno de los debates y al final decidirán quiénes ganaron. Para la primera pelea de peso completo, tenemos de nuestro lado derecho, defendiendo la monogamia, al rabino Shmuley Botek. Rabino ortodoxo, escritor, conductor de televisión y orador político, ganador del premio del predicador del año de London Times, defensor de varios temas, autor de 29 libros, algunos traducidos a 20 idiomas, incluyendo Kosher Sex, Kosher Adultery y Fed Up Man of Faith. Aparece regularmente en televisión y radio y escribe en The Huffington Post. Peso completo, please, Rabbi. En contra del rabino, que queremos decir que por ser Shabbat no va a poder utilizar micrófono y en lugar de apretar el botón va a levantar la mano. I just gave the rules that we talk about, ¿ok? Señoras y señores, en contra del rabino Shmuley, peso completo, presidente de la Asociación de la Academia de los Escépticos, Shermer calls for a better use of science and a dose of skepticism when questioning the validity of our beliefs. Shermer, Michael Shermer, autor de más de 12 libros, creador y fundador del Instituto Escéptico, autor de un libro de por qué la gente cree cosas que no debería de creer. Michael Shermer, peso completo, poligamia. You already know the rules of the game. Les voy a repetir las reglas del juego a cada uno de ustedes. Son 3 rounds. El primer round es golpe al cerebelo. Cada uno de ellos va a tener 113 segundos. When you press the button, that's your watch. When you press the button, that's your watch. Okay, Rabbi? When you raise your hand, there's your watch. Cada uno de ustedes tendrá 113 segundos primero en el golpe al cerebelo para defender su statement of purpose. ¿Por qué piensan como piensan? ¿Por qué y cuál es su hipótesis? Una vez que pasen 20 segundos se pueden interrumpir. Mientras tanto no lo podrán hacer y después intermitentemente podrán interrumpirse. El manejo del tiempo en la vida es tan importante como el contenido en el mismo. So, you know the first round, you have 113 seconds. Once you push the button, once you press the button, you have to wait 20 seconds to interrupt him and vice versa. Remember, time is as important as the content of what you put in it. ¿Listos? Vamos a empezar con usted, Rabbi. You won the flip of the coin and you choose to begin. So, empezamos. 113 segundos. Golpe al cerebelo. Raise your hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, today at Ciudad de las Ideas, I will make history as the first man to ever answer the question that no man has ever answered before. ¿Qué quiere una mujer? Freud himself said he could not answer what does a woman want. And the mistake is to believe that a woman wants to be loved. If she wanted to be loved, she would never leave her parents, who would never cheat on her, would never divorce her. Rather, A woman wants to be chosen. She wants primacy and exclusivity. She wants one man to place her at the center of his existence and to declare that I will drink from the deep rivers of your sexuality and I will inhale the fragrances of your sensuality. Passionate monogamy, where sex is not a one-trick pony, where as soon as we get bored, we move to the next person, making people feel discarded. So, Michael, wait 1 second. This is just foreplay.
Please.
I'm getting to the climax.
Okay.
I just want to know if you got this all from the Bible.
Oh no, Michael.
No. Raise your hand.
Michael, I got this because I am that rare man who is deeply in touch with his feminine side, Michael. My friends, why don't we know this and why are women so unhappy in relationships today? Because evolutionary science teaches us that men are nothing but sperm machines and they really want sex with the most possible partners, but women kind of tolerate it. Women are much more sexual than men. They just know that true sexuality is not when they are reduced to 3 erogenous zones of 2 breasts and genitalia. They want a man who will explore them in full. They want a man who will find in them the fire and passion of true erotic excitement. I know that we believe that a man says to his wife, "How about some sex tonight, honey?" And she says, "Not tonight, I have a headache." And yet a man can have an axe lodged in his head and he's still always ready. But the truth is precisely the opposite. Monogamy is where we find the greatest fire, love and romance, now and forever. Thank you very much.
You have 103 seconds to answer. Press the button, please.
Press this button.
Please.
I'm surprised to hear a rabbi making this argument because the Bible is the most immoral work in all of fiction. It is little more than a collection of stories by and about a bunch of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean warlords who are constantly fighting for land and women. It consists of a petty, jealous, vengeful God named Yahweh who punishes women for eternity with the pain of childbirth and subservience to men and condemns them to be little more than beasts of burden to and sex slaves of powerful men who in one of his many bad moods commits a hemoclism of genocidal proportions, murdering every sentient being on earth, including animals, in a massive flood. And then to make up for this murderous act, he commands the survivors to be fruitful and multiply, and rewards these warlords with as many wives as they could possibly handle, with the great King Solomon topping off at 700 women. Where's the monogamy in this story? Where's the morality in this story? And by the way, did anyone ask any of the women how they felt about this arrangement? But I have some good news for you. None of this actually happened, and none of these characters actually existed. This is all fiction. It's fiction written by men to justify what men will do when they can get away with it if they have enough power. And so monogamy derives from a pushback against that force.
Un aplauso por el primer round. Fue su estrategia darse hacia el tiempo. You choose not to interrupt yourself. You could change that. El primer round fue golpe al cerebelo, el segundo es golpe bajo. Esto no es un monólogo, es un diálogo. In the second round, you already listened what in the first round you opened and mentioned. Now, there are crimes against logic. Probably there was something that it was going wrong. And now it's the time to say, well, there is a contradiction in what the other part says, okay? Tienen 113 segundos. Una vez que pasen 20, se pueden interrumpir. Now you start.
Okay.
Press the button.
Yep. All right, so where does this monogamy concept come from in the first place? It does not come from the Bible. Clearly, all you have to do is read it, and you'll see that it doesn't come from there. In fact, most of us do not get our morality from the Bible, and that's a good thing. In fact, what happened is that 2 forces, men left out of this convenient polygamous relationship by...
Wait, we don't get our morality from the Bible. First of all, this isn't a synagogue or a church. It's a debate on monogamy and polygamy, and I think you found out that it's a debate on the Bible. But are you saying that therefore adultery should not be a sin?
You
should
are a rabbi.
Should adultery be allowed?
Well, you're a rabbi, so I figured we
Press the button.
you're a rabbi, so I figured we might as well get it out on the table here. We're talking Old Testament, right?
Okay, so should adultery be allowed?
Okay, no.
No, so
All
you're
right,
getting
so-
your morality from the Bible, Michael. All
No,
right,
no,
yeah.
no. I don't ask God if this is okay or not. All you have to do is ask your partner, and they'll tell you whether it's okay or not.
So in other words, okay.
You don't have to ask, Rabbi.
So in other words, you're saying that an open marriage, if a husband pushes his wife to allow him to have multiple sexual partners, which I counsel once a week at least, that could be something healthy. Marriage, you're saying that's a good idea so long as you're both consenting. Is that true?
No, what I'm arguing. Okay, I don't know. Oh yeah. Okay, so what I'm arguing is that, okay, so now we're into the morality of it. The biology is that men will get away with whatever they can get away with. It's women that keep a check on men, and that's why the liberation of women and the empowerment of women is what keeps society more civil and keeps guys from doing what guys will do.
How do we achieve you said protection of women from the male libido or the male desire to be polygamous? I mean, how
All of the
boring having the
above.
man arguing for polygamy. How do we protect that? By embracing an evolutionary model that actually says that it is natural for men to seek the widest possible distribution of their gene pool. That men are programmed to have the most sexual partners, and we are actually telling them to go against their nature. We are suppressing it. Precisely the opposite is true. People want intimacy. The men that I know, 50% of men who cheat these days, it's not even sexual, it's not even physical. Men are lonely and they also want to be understood. We have to create intimacy. I agree with you, it can't be boring. That's the problem, that we have not brought the erotic mind into the monogamous equation.
Okay, when men tell their affairs, their paramours, my wife doesn't understand me, that's a bullshit line. All right, they're just saying that to get sex. All right, even you've been bamboozled by this. Don't believe those
No,
lies.
what they mean is,
All right?
what they mean is my wife doesn't understand me. Michael, men, like women, are intimacy seekers, but they will try to get away. By the way, I don't think that women are programmed to be necessarily monogamous either. They want a great sex life, and they're not necessarily getting in their marriages. But the solution is not to open the floodgates to pain, infidelity, and emotional destruction. The solution is to make monogamy...
Time is over. Un aplauso para el rabino. Señoras y señores, los invito a ser parte. Si ustedes creen que alguien va diciendo algo mejor, pueden gritar bravo o boo. Son parte importante de este debate, por favor. Please, it's your turn.
Okay. All right, so the way it works is that science informs us of our nature and the way we are, and it's complicated. It isn't black and white. It isn't we're all monogamous or we're all polygamous. It isn't that simple. Once you know the configuration and the variables that affect the way people act, you then modify that through behavior. That's what civil society is all about. That's why we have rules and covenants and agreements. That's what marriage is about. You make an agreement. And much of that is overcoming our natural propensities, just like it would be to drink too much or...
Se acabó el tiempo. Un aplauso. Very important. Don't confuse. This is not a debate of what should we do or what should we be. It's not about a moral concern of normativity. It's who we are. What's our nature? What's our purpose of being of what we are? Okay? Is that clear? You have just 30 seconds. You cannot be interrupted. And this is the last round. It's called Ciudad de las Ideas round. Okay? You have 30 seconds. That's it. Vas.
If we are not naturally monogamous, then how is it in an age where God is dead, religion is dead, and the institution of marriage, certainly in places like Europe, is dead, why do people still choose to be monogamous? Maybe serially monogamous, but they don't want the pain of knowing that the person that they love has made them secondary, has made them superfluous. We are programmed to be intimacy seekers. We want to overcome loneliness by someone understanding our hearts. Monogamy and love now and forever. Michael, join the club.
Se acabó su tiempo. Michael, tienes 30 segundos. Vas.
So once you know what your real nature is, then you make an agreement to act against it or for it or whatever. This is what having relationships with other people is all about. I'm saying you're not getting any of this from the Bible, none of it. You are a fully modern man, and you got your modern morals from the Enlightenment and secularism and the idea that people are never to be treated as an ends, as a means to an end, but always as an end to themselves, and that's how women should be treated, and even you agree with that.
Un aplauso para los dos. Se acabó la pelea. Michael, thank you very much. Michael tiene que tomar el avión rapidísimo. Shmuley, Rabbi, please sit there. La siguiente pelea entre monogamia y poligamia es defendiendo la monogamia. Peso completo, antropólogo evolucionista e investigador de la Universidad de la Escuela de Londres. Peso completo, Kit Opie. Welcome, Kit. Investiga la evolución de los sistemas sociales en humanos y primates. Su último trabajo muestra cómo el infanticidio pudo motivar la monogamia en los primates. Su trabajo ha ganado el interés de los medios internacionales como CNN, BBC, The New York Times, The Washington Post, Reuters, among others. Welcome. Otro peso completo, un querido amigo, el padre de la psicología evolucionista en términos de muchos temas, obviamente de texto, porque aquí por supuesto está Richard Dawkins y todos reconocemos al gran Desmond Morris. David Bush, por favor David, él es psicólogo evolutivo de la Universidad de Texas en Austin, es miembro del Consejo de Asesores de la Ciudad de las Ideas. Está en el comité editorial de más de 10 revistas académicas, autor de libros de texto de psicología evolutiva y por supuesto se ha especializado en conflictos entre géneros, celos, homicidio, acosos. Recordarán su participación en las suelas ideas del libro Why Women Have Sex. Welcome. Poligamia. Ok. Él me dijo que él cree en la poligamia, pero que siempre será monógamo con su mujer, por si lo está escuchando. By the way. Ok, monógamos siempre decidieron empezar. You know the rules of the game, okay? You can press it or you have to raise your hand, because the rabbi talked like this and we were like, beep, ¿no? Ok, vas, apriétale. Yo bien.
Go. We wouldn't be here if we weren't monogamous. I don't mean in Puebla. I mean as a species. If early humans hadn't evolved monogamy, then we'd probably be just another ape species living in the forests of Central Africa. We wouldn't be having this debate unless monogamy had given us such a large brain. 4 times the size of a chimpanzee. And this is how it works. Monogamy allows males to feed and protect their children while they grow such very large brains. Chimpanzee males don't have any role in childcare, and that is because they're polygamous. So monogamous mating systems evolved across primates, including humans, because of a need to protect against infanticide. But once monogamy had evolved, then males could get involved in childcare and raise such big-brained infants. Monogamy doesn't need to be lifelong and faithful. Most animals, most monogamous animals aren't. What needs to be is females need a male to give some input in order to help her to raise a big-brained infant. So we are naturally monogamous. And it evolved in the last...
Okay, pass.
Do you think monogamy is the only strategy that humans have evolved?
It was the first strategy.
Press, please, press.
It was the first strategy.
Press.
And it evolved.
Press again.
It was the first strategy, and it evolved about 2 million years ago, or maybe less. Of course, now we can choose. And there are the majority of cultures now allow polygyny, where a husband can have more than one wife. Some cultures also practice polyandry.
Se acabó su tiempo, un aplauso. Son adversos al riesgo los psicólogos evolucionistas. You're risk adverse. You can interrupt whenever you want to, Bas.
Okay. Well, I agree that monogamy is one strategy that has evolved in humans, but it is not the only strategy. And there's a lot of evidence that we have also evolved strategies of trying to acquire multiple partners. I'm going to focus my talk on men's attempts to acquire multiple partners, but women also do the same thing in different contexts. And when I talk about polygamy, I'm talking about sexual polygamy, not formal marital arrangements. So this includes wives, mistresses, concubines, affair partners, brief sexual flings, and one-night stands. There are basically two classes of adaptations that have evolved that support the notion that men seek multiple mates. One has to do...
No, you cannot interrupt. You have 0. Keep going.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Press it.
One has to do with our desires and our desire for sexual variety. A second has to do with mate acquisition tactics. And actually a third has to do with mate retention tactics, the ways in which we keep our partners and prevent other males, what I call mate poachers, from encroaching sexually on our mates. Now, there are a variety of sources of empirical evidence to support these claims. Desire for sexual variety. Men, on average, desire 18 sex partners in the course of their life. Women, on average, 3 to 4. Men let less time elapse before seeking sexual intercourse. Men have more frequent sexual fantasies about different partners. Women's sexual fantasies are more likely to revolve around their personal sex partner. Men are more likely to consent to sex with total strangers. And as Aristotle Onassis said, without women, all the money in the world.
Se acabó su tiempo. Un aplauso para los dos. Su frase es como dijo Aristóteles Onassis, no serviría un peso, ¿va? Si no hubiera una mujer. Bueno, now is the second round. You just start. You can interrupt him when it says there are 93 seconds. Okay.
So, as I was saying, Aristotle Onassis said, without women, all the money in the world would mean nothing. The fact is that men who are historically in positions of power, when they possess the qualities that women want, which includes status and money, they tend to seek and obtain multiple partners. And so I'm talking about people like Hugh Hefner, Tiger Woods, Bill Clinton, Osama bin Laden.
So, David, you're talking about sex. Well, what about mating? Mating is the important issue here.
No, I think sex is the... I think there are two different issues here. One is the formal mating arrangements or marital arrangements. The second has to do with what our actual sexuality is about. And our sexuality involves multiple mating. We have physiology. So males are more likely to become sexually aroused upon the presentation of a new female. We have cross-cultural evidence. 83% of all traditional cultures legally permit polygyny.
But polygyny is different, isn't it? That is still a marriage arrangement for mating, for bringing up.
But it's a marriage arrangement in which men have sex with multiple women. Next, mate guarding. We've evolved sexual jealousy, what I call the dangerous passion. Now, I'm not encouraging either, in case my girlfriend is watching, I'm not encouraging polygamy, and I'm not even encouraging jealousy or the dangerous passion, but it is part of our evolved emotional system. Jealousy, even though it feels horrible, we feel humiliated, sad, depressed, angry, we experience it because it motivates us to protect our mates, to retain our mates, and to ward off mate poachers. So we have these systems in place.
And now you're back to mating again, because it's in those situations that you're bringing up, or you may bring up children. So sex is different from mating.
Okay.
And of course...
Sorry. Okay. Of course, sex is different from mating, but men's jealousy tends to focus on the sexual aspects of the infidelity. Women's jealousy focuses more on the emotional aspects. So women want to know, if they suspect their partner of cheating, do you love her? Men want to know, did you have sex?
Wow, se acabó el tiempo. 1 second, please. Una pregunta para el público, que levante la mano y que grite yo, quien venga con su pareja al lado. Con razón Adel aplaude al polígamo. Now I understand, now I get it. You have 90 seconds, you cannot be interrupted, okay? Vas.
What is most likely to evolve here is mating systems, because mating systems are the way in which we pass on our genes into the future. Yes, of course, humans are like any other animal, and if either females or males get the chance of extra mating opportunities, then they may well take them. But the crucial question here is, are we by nature monogamous? And we know now from the new Bayesian methods that we can use, we can trace back and look at how mating systems and social systems have evolved through time. And we can see what has happened to humans. And humans initially evolved monogamous mating, and that was the only way that we could get a brain as large as we have. Of course, once we have this large brain, we can then do many things with it, as well as choose different ways of having sex. And of course, it's true that there are different ways of mating. In some cultures, as I said before, it's possible for a husband to have a number of wives, and it's also possible for a wife to have a number of husbands, although that is rarer. And increasingly, states are allowing gay marriage, which is not about mating at all. So what we can say is that, crucially, we are monogamous at heart.
Wow, buenos argumentos. You just have 30 seconds. You cannot be interrupted.
30?
Without interruption. It's the last round, okay?
Okay, he had 90.
No, both of you have 113 seconds
okay.
in each round.
Okay.
This is the third and last round. 30 seconds. You have the microphone.
Of course, monogamy has evolved. We know that for a fact, but we also know that polygyny has evolved. We know this from the molecular genetic evidence. And I would like to just read a quick quote from the warlord Genghis Khan. "The greatest pleasure is to vanquish your enemies, to chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, and to see their near and dear bathed in tears, to ride on their horses and sleep on the bellies of their wives and daughters." The genetic evidence suggests that 8%.
Se acabó su tiempo. Un aplauso, por favor, para David Voss. 30 segundos.
Polygyny, a male having a number of wives, only evolved very recently. In fact, it evolved with agriculture. Before then people were hunter-gatherers. And we know from hunter-gatherers today that they are pretty much exclusively monogamous. And that's because they are carrying on the way in which they evolved from about 500,000 years ago. By nature, we are monogamous, although we now have choices.
Un aplauso, se acabó esta pelea. Por favor. Gracias. Ok, dos amigos queridos de la Ciudad de las Ideas vienen al ring, defendiendo la monogamia con ese extraordinario libro, varios libros que adoramos todos nosotros, de The First Sex, entre otros, nuestra querida amiga Helen Fisher. Please come here. Bravo. Helen es antropóloga física investigadora de la Universidad de Rutgers. Es asesora científica de chemistry.com. Este es un sitio, por cierto, que ustedes se meten, les preguntan varias cosas de su arquetipo y ella, haciendo un tipo de junguiano esquema, les puede encontrar a la pareja con la cual podrán tener relaciones felices para el resto de su vida. Ha aparecido en CNN, ABC, NBC, BBC y Ciudad de las Ideas. Ha escrito artículos para el New York Times, Washington Post, The Economist, Nature, Science, etc. Escritora de más de 5 libros bestsellers sobre evolución, sexualidad, adulterio, diferencias de género y la química del amor romántico, ¿por qué amamos? Why we love, The First Sex, Why Him, Why Her, among others. And, if I'm correctly, there is a new movie that's going to, please share with us about that.
A well-known documentarian has done a movie about my work about rejection and love, and it will come out. It's in Sundance now. We'll see if it gets into Sundance, and it'll be out in January.
What's the name of the film?
What's the name? It's called Sleepless in New York, and it's about rejection in love, which is the most powerful, painful situation a human being can be in.
Bravo, un aplauso para Helen Fisher. Sin duda alguna les quiero confesar que uno de mis héroes intelectuales es su oponente. De hecho, si quieren gozar su tiempo libre, les recomiendo que sigan en Twitter una cosa que se llama Open Culture. Busquen Robert Sapolsky y busquen su curso de Human Behavior. Quiero que sepan que junto a Bob Cutter y muy pocas otras personas que yo conozco, hay pocos profesores tan extraordinarios y tan grandes pensadores como Robert Sapolsky de Stanford University. Robert Sapolsky es un miembro genio de la Sociedad MacArthur, profesor de Biología y Neurología en la Universidad de Stanford, investigador asociado del Instituto de Investigación en Primates en el Museo Nacional de Kenia. Recibió en el año 2008 el Gran Premio Carl Sagan por ciencia, por divulgación científica, autor de 5 libros, incluyendo esa gran obra de por qué las cebras no tienen úlceras y cuál es nuestro problema con nuestra testosterona. Él no cree que exista the free will, pero si existe, no sería muy interesante. Robert Sapolsky, welcome. Un aplauso. Okay, Bob. I haven't heard any comment from this side from the difference of our heights. From many other things, you have to be pretty strong, my friends. You have done a great job so far. ¿Quién cree que va ganando de este lado? Griten. ¿Quién creen que va ganando de este lado? Bueno, vamos a ver. Do you know the rules, please?
I think I do. So I push the button?
Please, push the button.
And then I start? I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted that you're here. And Robert, unlike our speakers this morning who won't be seeing each other again, I hope I am seeing you again. The old Chinese proverb says the first step to wisdom is naming something. We have been saying it to some extent, but mono means one and gamy means spouse. One spouse. Academics don't mean that this is necessarily sexually faithful to that spouse. Polygamy, poly meaning one, gamy meaning spouse, several wives or husbands at the time. In traditional societies, 84% of world cultures have permitted a man to have several wives. But in the vast majority of these cultures, only about 5 or 10% of these men actually acquire enough land, cows, goats, whatever it is, money, status, in order to have more than one wife at a time. So that if you went around the world into every single household and simply counted heads, you would find one man and one woman in almost every one of them, monogamy. This is not to suggest that...
I guess the one question there is what percentage of the men would if they had the resources?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. This is not to suggest that men and women are necessarily sexually faithful to their partners. I've studied adultery in 42 societies, and in every one you see some people who are adulterous. In the United States right now, the data shows that about 25% of men and 15% of women will have an affair at some point during their relationship. Of course, I've always wondered who all these men are sleeping with, if the women aren't sleeping with them. But anyway, I've long maintained that we've evolved what I call a dual human reproductive strategy, a tremendous drive to fall in love, form a pair bond, and rear our children as a team, and also a predisposition, a tendency towards adultery, divorce, and serial marriage. So it's serial monogamy.
Tiempo. Un aplauso.
Okay, I want to approach that putting a lot of this into a biological context, in that there are many species, primate species out there that are dramatically monogamous, many that are dramatically polygamous. People have studied them a lot, and there's very consistent characteristics to both species. And what I want to do here is review what the differences are that you consistently see, all to lead up to a dramatic final 10 seconds as to, so where do humans fit in this? So, classically monogamous primates, the female and the male look identical. They are both raising offspring together, lots of male parental investment, low levels of male aggression. Highly polygamous primates, males are much larger, huge, large canines, things of that sort. What does it look like consistently? What you see is in polygamous species, on the average, males are bigger, stronger, more muscle mass, larger hearts, larger lungs, larger canines, more red blood cells, more limb strength, greater metabolic rates, shorter lifespan. The genetics differ consistently. Between polygamous and monogamous primates, there are differences in genes related to vasopressin receptors, a class of diseases called imprinted diseases. Behavior, polygamous primates, high levels of male aggression, little parental behavior. Reproductive behavior, females in monogamous primates are more likely to twin. Males have lower sperm counts, smaller testes, different genetics of it. Consistently show somebody a primate species and show them only one or two of those traits, and they can tell you monogamous or polygamous. So where do humans fit in this? I see I'm gonna have to wait till my next round.
Un aplauso. Golpes fuertes. Okay. Now you press the button to begin. No, it's his turn. It's the second round. Now you start.
Okay.
Please press the button.
So in our last episode, what we'd gotten to were these consistent patterns. Go and observe a primate that no one has ever seen before on this planet, and notice that the male, the guy with the penis, is a lot bigger than the one who's nursing the babies. You know everything else about the traits I just told you. This is a polygamous species. Look at a primate species that you've never seen.
You know, I'm sure you do know that sexual dimorphism does not always mean polygyny or monogamy. There's a good deal of issues about whether that actually means something. For example, among hawks, the female's a good deal larger than the male, and it's just because it's she sits on the eggs when the babies are little, and then feeds them when they're little, and then they change turns so that when the babies are larger, the female goes out and buys and gets the food, and so she's a larger animal because she's got to seriously get rabbits instead of mice. So that's not always a very convincing strategy.
Oh, completely agree with that. Within the primates, there's less variability, but nonetheless, that is the general pattern. So again, you look at a primate you've never seen before, you know zero about them, and all you see is the one with the penis and the one with the vagina are roughly the same body size, and you can tell something about their number of red blood cells, the genetics of their vasopressin receptors, etc. It's a monogamous species. So thus we come to the absolutely critical question amid this range of variability, which is, so where do humans fit with this? Every single measure I just told you, anatomy, height, weight, etc., limb strength, tendency to deposit fat, in which are that part of the body's lifespan, aspects of genetics, aspects of testes, etc., in every single one of those domains.
Robert, you've mentioned everything except the brain, and I study the brain in love, and I will end up talking about that when I've got that opportunity. And that's a very important part of monogamy.
Okay, I love the brain too, and study it tons, and I love it deeply and faithfully, but final question here, with all of that, with every single one of those measures, at the two extremes, where are humans in every single one of those measures? Somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. In some of the cases, body height differences were more in the monogamous direction. With some of the genetics were more in the polygamous. What I think the punchline is we are not by nature monogamous. We are not by nature polygamous. We are by deep, deep nature very confused as a species.
Se acabó el tiempo. You should be here in the middle. Please.
I was recently on the BBC radio with a man from Kenya, and he had 3 wives. And I asked him, how many wives would you like to have? And I was thinking, is he going to say 10? Is he going to say 15? Is he going to say 50? And he leaned into his microphone and said, none. In fact, It can be a real headache having a whole lot of partners. So I want to talk about the brain. As you know, and a lot of people here know, I and my colleagues have put over 100 people into the brain scanner and studied the brain circuitry of romantic love and attachment. It's one of those, it doesn't come from the cortex, it's not from the limbic system, the emotional centers. It's in deep primordial parts of the brain that are directly next to the drive for thirst and for hunger. These are primordial brain systems that evolved millions of years ago to start pair bonding. And the academic data shows that Ardipithecus ramidus at 4.4 million years ago was already showing some of the dimorphisms, as going on your thing, that indicate that pair bonding or monogamy had already evolved. And in fact, by 3.2 million years, we have more data that monogamy had evolved. Monogamy is a hallmark of
Tiempo, un aplauso para los dos. Buenos argumentos. Okay, now you just have 30 seconds. It's the last round. Yes.
10 seconds?
30.
10. 30.
30, sí, 30.
Okay.
3-0, okay? It's your turn.
Ultimately, I think there's something even more interesting going on, which is insofar as we're oscillating in the middle there, some of us more this way, some of us more that way, some of them, what I think is even more fundamentally important than asking what is our nature in this regard is to realize the extent to which we as humans do not have fixed natures. What was so clear about the genetics, the neurobiology of us as humans, is the extent to which we've evolved to be free of our inevitable nature.
Se acabó su tiempo. The last words.
I agree that we don't have a fixed nature, but we have predispositions, all kinds of them. We are, Plato once said that the God of love lives in a state of need. Romantic love and attachment are basic needs. The vast majority of people in almost every culture on earth fall in love, form pair bonds, and rear their children as a team, with a few exceptions. Samuel Johnson once called remarriage the triumph of hope over experience. Indeed, we try it over and over and over again.
Se acabó, un aplauso para los dos. El último debate de este día y de este gran Ciudad de las Ideas. De nuestro lado de la monogamia tenemos a nuestra querida amiga Marty Haselton. Welcome, Marty. Es psicóloga evolucionista y endocrinóloga. Es profesora del Departamento de Psicología de UCLA. Es autora del libro Evolution and the Social Mind, Evolutionary Psychology and Social Cognition. Del 2006 al 2011 fue editora de la revista insignia de la conducta humana y la evolución social. Welcome. Y el rey de la promiscuidad intelectualmente hablando, Christopher Ryan. Es psicólogo de Saybrook University. Viajó por todo el mundo haciendo trabajos diversos, identificando lo natural de lo cultural. Es autor de Sex at Dawn, que argumenta que los hombres, de hecho, no somos sexualmente monógamos. Ni las mujeres. Su trabajo ha aparecido en Psychology Today, Huffington Post, The Times of London, y se ha divorciado 17 veces por causa de adulterio. No, no es cierto, era bravo. Señoras y señores, 3 rounds. Press the button.
So I'm going to make the argument that humans have evolved to form socially monogamous bonds. That does not mean that when those bonds are formed, they will be perfectly sexually monogamous, and it does not mean that they will be lifelong. But there's a very strong evolutionary rationale for why humans have evolved to form socially monogamous bonds for co-rearing their offspring. Ancestral women faced huge demands of pregnancy and lactation and typically had multiple dependent children at the same time. And they took forever to get out of the house. Therefore, mothers required assistance in raising their offspring. Yes, a mother's kin might help, but no other individual is more closely related to a child than the father. So fathers faced great selection pressure to invest in children, more so than anyone else in a mother's group. Around the globe, in fact, fathers do invest. This is true in post-agricultural industrial societies. It is true in hunter-gatherer societies. It is true around the world. Fathers do invest.
That is true generally, but there are so many exceptions that we have to think about. For example, in the Amazon, the tribes that believe in partible paternity, people actually believe that babies are made of accumulated semen. So, I'm counting down. In those cases, multiple fathers invest in the children. So the absolute formula is not that clear. Yeah. No.
It's my turn.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
I didn't know how to stop my clock.
Press it again, please.
One can find examples of variable human behavior. Humans engage in widely variable mating practices, but I would make the argument that the weight of the evidence is strongly toward the suggestion that humans have evolved to form pair bonds, that male partners are not indifferent to paternity, that they have the fact of sexual jealousy, that sexual jealousy appears to be a cross-cultural universal. I know that you have examples. I might argue that those are cherry-picked examples, and that what we really need is the cumulative weight of the evidence.
What's wrong with cherries? What's your problem with cherries? all arguments are to an extent cherry picking. We all choose the evidence that supports our argument. If you've got a big basket of cherries, then that's a pretty good argument.
Well, I would argue that it's not such a large basket of cherries, and that even some of the examples, so for example, the Na of China, it's an example where men are reported not to invest in their children, and there's reported to be quite a bit of promiscuity. But that's a contested example, and many of the
Tiempo, un aplauso, por favor. Christopher, tienes 71 segundos. Aprovecha tu tiempo. Aprieta el botón.
Primero, muchísimas gracias, Andrés, y todo el mundo aquí por este congreso fantástico. First, human sexuality is not primarily about reproduction. Imagine that. It's about establishing and maintaining intimacy and trust. That's why most mammals have sex about 12 times per birth. Humans have sex about 1,000 times per birth. If that number seems high to some of you, don't worry, it seems low to others. I promise. Rabbi, have you ever seen a gorilla's penis?
I studied them closely.
I'm sorry, I just always wanted to say that. I've always wanted to ask a rabbi that question. A gorilla's penis is this big. It's that big. The reason it's so small is that gorillas don't have sperm competition. The males fight, the male who wins is the only one to have sex. Humans, chimpanzees, bonobos have much larger penises. In fact, some of you will be happy to hear that the human penis is the longest and thickest among all mammals compared to body size.
No,
I'm out of
se
time.
acabó tu tiempo. Un aplauso para los dos. Okay, Rabbi, would you like to answer the question?
It was a rhetorical question.
Well,
really.
no, the human penis is the longest of all mammalian species because it facilitates face-to-face sexual relations so that it's not just back to front where the female doesn't matter, but it's face-to-face, eyes open, peering deeply and intimately because it's lovemaking and not just copulating.
And do you know there's one other mammal that has, that's a very good point. There's one other mammal that has face-to-face sexual sex intercourse, and it happens to be one of the two species most closely related to human beings, the bonobo, which is completely promiscuous.
Okay, it's your turn.
An alternative explanation for the fact that humans have sex and have sex throughout the cycle is that it plays a very important role in pair bonding. So let me just go through.
Then why do so many couples who have been married for so long report the diminishment of passion and sexless marriages?
Well, there's a difference between sexual passion and feeling an intense bond with one's partner. And what I would argue is that sexual passion is primarily about getting down with the business of mating, identifying your partner, selecting your partner, falling in love. That experience is not one that is necessarily sustainable. We can't be walking around bumping into walls for the rest of our lives. But we do form intense bonds. And there's a great deal of evidence for this, cross-cultural evidence. In every society in which people have looked, people report court romantic love. There are hormone changes. Men experience changes in their hormones when they begin a relationship. They experience a reduction in testosterone. When they have a child, they experience a further reduction in testosterone. Those things probably play a role in care for offspring.
I agree. There are hormonal changes. Interestingly, one of the few things that will increase a man's testosterone is having sex with a novel partner.
Yes, indeed, and testosterone probably plays a role in seeking such partners as well. So the evidence that men's testosterone decreases when they enter a relationship is evidence for maintaining a relationship with one partner to the exclusion of others.
Or evidence of erotic boredom.
I guess you got me there.
Aplauso para los dos, por favor, y detengamos el reloj un segundo. Wait a second. Solo decirles que al terminar el debate vamos a salir muy rápido y terminaremos la sección de hoy con la presentación del Dr. David Koncevic y luego habrá un break. Please, keep going. Now is your turn. Press the button.
So, if it's the case that humans evolved to be like bonobos and engage in free love behavior, and fathers do not invest, and that this is exceptionally rare, then I think that you have to explain the fact that even in many pre-agricultural societies, there is a formation of long-term bonds. Moreover, this perspective that you've taken seems to make some predictions that don't seem to be consistent with, I think, many of our experiences. So if we are using sex for bonding, then why do people prefer to have sex with attractive others? Why don't we remain pals with all of our exes? Why aren't friends having more sex?
Gran punto, el último golpe fue devastador. Un aplauso, por favor. Okay, 90 seconds.
And why isn't everybody in the audience having sex, except for those two over there?
En castellano, usted utilizó la palabra esposas ayer. Esposas in Spanish means both wives and handcuffs. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration around sexual monogamy. What I argue, what my wife actually, and my co-author, who is out there somewhere, argue in Sex at Dawn is that human beings evolved where both men and women are by nature promiscuous breeders. And this explains all the ambiguities that both sides of the debate are dealing with right now. If you look at our testicles, you look at the shape of our penis, you look at the woman's capacity for multiple orgasm, let's do a quick test. Raise your hand if you've ever heard a heterosexual couple having sex. In a hotel, maybe your parents, your neighbors. Okay, a lot of hands are up. The rest of you are probably lying. Now, raise your hand if the man was making more noise than the woman. I don't see a single hand. That's called female copulatory vocalization.
She just wants to let him know that he's doing it right.
You've got no time, lady.
No,
what
you
are
don't
you
have
doing?
time. Yes, please press the button.
Yes, it's true that it encourages the man to finish, as any prostitute will confirm. But it's also true that women do this by nature, including some very shy, reserved women. That tells us something about our species.
Señoras y señores, se acabó esta gran pelea. Solo falta, no. Yes, you can kiss, please. There are rooms, there is everything. No, I'm just kidding, no. Cada quien de ustedes tiene 30 segundos y se acabó su este debate. You have just 30 seconds to say whatever you want. And 30 seconds, okay? I'm sorry, Bas.
Okay,
please.
so I think that the evidence in humans is clearly that humans evolved, the evidence for promiscuity is thin, quite frankly, whereas the evidence that humans have evolved to form pair bonds.
You haven't read our
Cannot
book.
interrupt, I'm sorry. Please keep.
Whereas the
press
evidence
again.
that humans have evolved to form pair bonds includes the phenomenology of love, changes in hormones, the fact that men do invest. Men are not indifferent to paternity. Men experience sexual jealousy and so on. Moreover, I guess I would say that promiscuous.
Se acabó su tiempo. Ahora sí, un aplauso final. Tus últimos 30 segundos. Ataca. Por favor, aprieta el botón.
There are 300 and some species of primate in the world. I'm not sure exactly how many, depending how we define primate. Many of them live in large, complex, multi-male social groups. How many of them are sexually monogamous? 30%. I think it's 0. By the way, you said hunter-gatherers are strictly monogamous. That's completely wrong. Please read our book. We give scores of examples of hunter-gatherers that are anything but monogamous.
Un aplauso. Please stand up. Please come with me. Bob, David, come here. Rabbi, come here. Please. Un aplauso muy grande para todos ellos. Thank you very much. Gracias.